Ed and Lorraine Warren became known for facing some of the darkest possession cases ever recorded. But among all the spirits and demons, there was one that stood out above the rest. We're talking about Valak, the demonic nun, and in this video, we're going to tell her complete story from the very beginning. 11th century, the origin of Valak. In the depths of medieval Romania, an ambitious duke built a castle on cursed land. Inside, underground corridors hid serpentine symbols carved into stone, marks dedicated to the 62nd spirit of the Goetia, Valak. The Goetia was a collection of medieval occult texts gathered in grimoires like the Ars Goetia, part of the famous Lesser Key of Solomon. It listed 72 demons, and among them Valak was described as the great president of hell, capable of commanding legions of spirits and controlling serpents. For the church of that time, these grimoires were seen as dangerous tools of witchcraft, capable of opening cracks between our world and the underworld. But the Duke wanted more than power. He wanted to open a portal to hell. With complex rituals and ancient books, the Duke attempted to create a passage between the living world and the underworld. To complete the ritual, 5 lives were sacrificed and the portal opened. Valak almost crossed over. His golden eyes were already visible through the rift, but the church intervened. They realized the threat and used the liquid from the Holy Grail to temporarily seal the portal. But unlike what they believed, the seal wouldn't last forever. Valak waited, trapped, biding his time for another chance to break into the world of the living. 1952. The Nun. Centuries passed, but the Abbey of St. Carta still carried the weight of that secret. Until in 1952, the peace of the convent in Romania was shattered by something far older than any of those nuns could imagine. That demonic force had been trapped there, waiting for the right chance to escape. When one of the nuns chose to take her own life rather than be possessed, the Vatican understood how serious the situation was. They sent in the experienced Father Burke and the young novice Sister Irene to investigate. Father Burke was no ordinary priest. He carried a past scarred by traumatic exorcisms and had faced forces that left deep marks on his faith. That experience was exactly why he was chosen. Sister Irene, on the other hand, was young, naive in the eyes of many, but she had something that set her apart. Mystical visions that had followed her since childhood. Those visions made her question whether they were signs from God or temptations of the devil. Her presence in the investigation wasn't just a test by the church, but also a personal trial of faith. But they weren't alone on this journey. A local farmer known as Frenchy joined them and served as their guide to the convent. Frenchy, whose real name was Maurice Theriot, was a simple farmer with a kind heart who got involved almost by accident. He knew the area well and helped as a guide, but it soon became clear that his connection to the events was far from ordinary. His lighthearted nature contrasted with the darkness surrounding the abbey. He represented ordinary humanity, the bridge between the real world and the supernatural. As they explored the dark corridors, they discovered the convent was much more than just a holy place. The nuns there took turns in constant prayer, doing everything they could to keep a malevolent presence contained. But something had changed. The bombings of World War II had weakened the abbey's structure and reopened the portal. The seal was no longer strong enough to hold Valak, and the demon was freed. At the climax, Irene is possessed, dragged into the crypt, but in a desperate act of faith, she makes the bravest decision of her life. She swallows the sacred blood of Christ and spits it into the demon's face. For a moment, it looks like the end, but Valak always finds a way back. 1955, Annabelle, creation. In 1955, 12 years after the death of their daughter, the Mullins family welcomed a group of orphans into their home, where the demon Malthus took form through the Annabelle doll. But among the scares and possessions, there are important clues that connect this story directly to the future reign of terror of the demonic nun. In a photo shown by Sister Charlotte, we can clearly see the demonic nun lurking in the background, as if she had always been watching, waiting for her time to act. This detail connects the story of Annabelle with the events of the nun. Even the post-credits scene suggests that Valak was already haunting the abbey before Father Burke and Sister Irene ever arrived. 1956, The Nun 2. 4 years after the events at St. Carta, Valak returned, and this time the stage was no longer just the abbey in Romania, but all of Europe. After the mysterious deaths of several priests and nuns, the Vatican realized the evil hadn't been banished, and only one person could face it again. Sister Irene, now living and hiding in Italy, was given a new mission: to investigate the wave of religious murders sweeping the continent. But she wouldn't be alone. This time she was joined by young Sister Deborah, a skeptical nun struggling with her own lack of faith. Together they followed the clues to a French boarding school. Meanwhile, Irene was tormented by a disturbing vision: the face of Frenchy, the farmer who had once helped her in battle, and who now carried something terrible inside him. Frenchy worked at the boarding school as a gardener, trying to live a normal life. He cared for the garden, helped the children, but something was consuming him from within. Little by little, his possession grew stronger. Without realizing it, he became the perfect vessel for Valak to walk freely among the living. The charismatic man who once saved lives was now the demon's weapon. The transformation didn't happen all at once. Valak was smarter than that. At first, there were just nightmares. Frenchie waking up drenched in sweat with memories of dark corridors and dead nuns. Then came the blackouts. One moment watering plants, the next finding himself in the cellar with no memory of how he got there. The children began to notice. The kind gardener seemed different. His smiles didn't last, and sometimes his eyes turned completely black for a few seconds. One morning he woke up with the mark, an inverted scar on his neck, shaped like a serpent. And then the voices started. Each day the voice grew stronger and Frenchie grew weaker, until one night he simply stopped fighting. The man everyone knew was gone. In his place walked only a puppet, with Valak pulling the strings. It's here that Irene discovers the demon's true goal. Valak was searching for the eyes of Saint Lucy, a 4th century Christian martyr venerated as the protector of those who suffer injustice. According to tradition, not even fire could destroy her. Her bloodline was said to have inherited a kind of spiritual immunity against the forces of hell. And Irene uncovers the most shocking revelation of all. She herself is a direct descendant of Saint Lucy. That's why Valak wanted her. He had known from the very beginning. Every manipulation from the abbey to Frenchie's possession had one single goal: to break the sacred bloodline and absorb its divine power. Frenchie, already overtaken by the demon, lifts Irene amidst raging flames. Valak laughs, believing he has won, but Irene resists. The fire doesn't touch her. With the renewed faith of Sister Deborah and the prayers of the children, Irene confronts the demon once again. The power of the relic, combined with the bloodline of St. Lucy, banishes Valak once more. Frenchie is freed, but only for a short time. The movie ends with a grim foreshadowing. A phone call received years later by Ed and Lorraine Warren, directly tying Frenchie's fate to the cases the couple would go on to investigate. But Valak wasn't defeated. He was only waiting for his next move.
Yes, Father. How can we help?
1971. The Conjuring. This is where we're introduced to Ed and Lorraine Warren. Even before facing Valak, they were already known for investigating some of the most terrifying cases in history. He, a Navy veteran with deep knowledge of demonology. She, a clairvoyant medium, able to see what no one else could. Together, they founded the New England Society for Psychic Research and became the most famous demonologists of the 20th century, with hundreds of supernatural investigations to their names. In the Warrens' first major case shown on screen, they faced the Perrin family. The central threat was the witch Bathsheba, but Lorraine, as sensitive as always, felt something more. Amid visions and premonitions, there was a presence unlike any other, silent, older, and far more terrifying. She didn't know it yet, but this was the very first whisper of what would later haunt her forever: Valak. 1972, Annabelle comes home. Once again, the Annabelle doll takes center stage, spreading terror and leaving a trail of destruction behind. And even though Valak doesn't manifest directly, it's impossible to ignore how each event seemed to be part of something much bigger, like cogs in an infernal machine. The Warrens realized that evil wasn't limited to haunted objects or cursed houses, but that there was a greater force behind it all, manipulating and connecting everything. It was as if Annabelle was just a single piece on a much larger chessboard, a chessboard where Valak had always been the true player. 1977, The Conjuring 2. After the Perron case in 1971, the Warrens had already faced things that seemed impossible to explain, but nothing, absolutely nothing could have prepared them for what was coming. During the investigation at Amityville, Lorraine had her first vision of Valak. She was walking through the dark hallways of the house when suddenly, every crucifix on the walls turned upside down at the same time. In the reflection of a cracked mirror, the distorted image of the house shifted into something even more horrifying: the figure of a demonic nun. At that moment, Lorraine realized she was facing an evil unlike anything she had ever encountered. But the most brutal confrontation was yet to come. The real battle arrived the following year in Enfield, London, in 1977. In the Hodgson family home, the unexplainable became routine. Chairs dragged themselves across the floor. Crucifixes slowly twisted until they hung upside down. And Janet, just 11 years old, was tormented night after night. Her voice changed, guttural, macabre, when the spirit of Bill Wilkins, the house's former tenant, spoke through her. His voice echoed from the girl's mouth, demanding that the living leave his house. For a while, everyone believed it was only the ghost of Wilkins. But as the apparitions grew, Lorraine began to notice inconsistencies. Something didn't add up. Then new figures appeared. First, the Crooked Man, his deformed body and broken movements stumbling out of the shadows like a living puppet. Then came shifting shadows, multiple voices echoing all at once. And then Lorraine understood. None of it was real. Not Wilkins, not the Crooked Man, not the illusions. Everything was being manipulated by a much more powerful being, using these images as masks. The true puppeteer was Valak. During the investigation, Lorraine herself became haunted at home. One day, she found something that at first seemed harmless. A painting Ed had made. It was the image of the demonic nun. The painting leaned against the wall motionless, but the tension grew when Lorraine realized she wasn't alone. The candlelight flickered, and a shadow slowly stretched across the wall until it merged with the painting. Suddenly, the painting wasn't just a painting anymore. Valak's eyes seemed alive, staring at Lorraine with suffocating intensity. The silence shattered when the painting tore itself from the wall and lunged at her with a crash, revealing the real figure of the demonic nun, stepping out of the shadows to attack. Lorraine screamed in terror, struggling to fight back, and in that moment, there was no doubt. Valak wasn't just some distant entity trapped in old churches in Romania. He was now inside their lives. He had chosen Lorraine as his target, preying on her deepest fears. The climax came when Ed risked his life to save Janet, who, under the demon's control, was about to throw herself out the window. In desperation, Lorraine finally understood the key to defeating Valak, the power of his true name. The entire house shook. The shadows surrounding Valak shattered, revealing his true form for just a moment. A supernatural wind ripped through the hallways as the demon was sucked back into the void. Valak was defeated. Well, at least for now. 1981, The Conjuring. The Devil Made Me Do It. In 1981, the Warrens faced one of the strangest cases of their entire career, an event that mixed demonic possession, human sacrifice, and an unprecedented trial in U.S. history. And even without appearing directly, the shadow of Valak was still present. The case began with David Glatzel, an 8-year-old boy who suddenly began showing disturbing behavior. His body was thrown against walls by invisible forces. Scratches appeared on his skin with no explanation, and his childish voice gave way to guttural screams in unknown tongues. During the exorcism conducted by the Warrens, chaos filled the room. Objects shattered on their own, crucifixes twisted in the air, and incomprehensible words spilled from the child's mouth. In one brief but chilling moment, a serpentine shadow crawled across the wall, subtle but enough for Lorraine to recognize. That energy felt eerily similar to the same presence she had faced years earlier. It was as if Valak, even unseen, still had influence over the case. While the Warrens fought to save the boy, a cult led by Isla performed occult rituals. The symbols resembled those found in the ancient Romanian abbey: serpentine marks, golden eyes, and demonic inscriptions. None of the rituals invoked Valak directly, but they created fertile ground, spiritual cracks that allowed demonic influence to keep seeping into the human world. At the height of the exorcism, when David seemed lost, Arna Johnson, the boyfriend of the boy's sister, made a desperate choice. He shouted at the demon to take him instead, and in that instant, everything changed. David's body relaxed, but Arna's eyes darkened. He had become the new host. Soon after, Arna committed a brutal murder, and the case became the first trial in U.S. history, where the defense claimed demonic possession as justification for the crime. It shocked not only the American justice system, but also exposed to the world the heavy burden of the Warrens' work. During the trial, Valak's name was never mentioned, but his shadow lingered. The rituals performed by Igla's cult bore serpentine symbols and demonic inscriptions almost identical to those from the Romanian abbey. It was as if, even without being there physically, Valak continued to inspire those who sought power in darkness. A reminder that the demon doesn't always need to show himself to keep influencing the world. Shadows moving on their own, whispers in Latin echoing through corridors, golden eyes appearing in visions and drawings. All reminders that the demonic nun still lurked, invisible, patient, feeding on fear. From the Middle Ages to the 1980s, one thing has become clear: Valak never disappears. Sometimes hidden, sometimes disguised, but always present. And with The Conjuring 4, Last Rites on the way, we can only be sure of one thing: Valak's story is far from over. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more, just like the ones popping up on the screen now. See you there.